game-changing discussions on the big ideas that shape our thinking. This is One2One.
Hello and welcome to One2One. Previously on the show, Bambo Akani, founder and CEO of Making of Champions, spoke extensively about the issues and challenges facing the Nigerian athletics industry. Today is the concluding part of that conversation. So Bambo, talking about sowing and reaping, in a few weeks, there's the World Athletics Championships just around the corner.
Yes.
In Tokyo this September. How's 2025 looking based on the work that's been done in the years leading up to this? And what would you say are our prospects at the World Championships this year?
Well, 2025 is not looking great. We have about 10 or 11 athletes who have qualified already. But the major area that Nigeria should be focusing on winning medals, because we always did it when we weren't trying, are the relays. And we're in a big mess there at the moment. We missed the World Relays, and the World Relays is almost like a guaranteed qualification route for the World Championships. As a matter of fact, in each of the relays for the World Championships, 14 out of 16 teams qualify the World Relays. So the implication of missing it means that there's only 2 slots left, and everyone else in the world is running for time to get those 2 slots. It's not a position you want to be in. So out of the 5 relays, Nigeria was only still in a qualifying position for one of them until a couple of weeks ago, Jamaica went to London and ran a better time. So we're out of all 5 relays at the moment. Very little indication that we will be able to qualify in any of them. Maybe the men's 4x4, they're so talented, but they have to run, I think, close to a national record to beat the time needed to qualify. So all of that is just to say that we're not yet keyed into the sowing and reaping of this, right? In this instance, you sow by making sure that you're at the World Relays so all the teams can qualify without pressure. So I think we can still get it right for 2028. There's still time. 3 years is not a lot of time. But I only even have belief that the pessimistic view will not happen. The only reason I have that belief is because of what we're doing at Making of Champions, because I've seen what we've done in a year with the support of the likes of MTN and Beacon Power Services. And it's given me belief that, you know what, if we keep going, if we amass more support for this movement, then 2028 can be a riot in a positive way for Nigeria. But we have to find a way to keep these athletes together, to keep them funded for the next 3 years, and obviously to keep recruiting the best talents across Nigeria and giving them everything they need to do the nation proud. The current state and the future of Nigerian athletics is in the balance because we know that Ofili is not the only Nigerian that Turkey would have approached. And we know that they're not the only country that is still trying to recruit athletes. In fact, the news of Ofili possibly going to Turkey has put some other countries on notice that, actually, Nigerian athletes are for sale.
Open season.
Yeah, open season. Yeah, let's go and get them. They're willing to wait 3 years. They can be with us for the next Olympics. So let's do it.
But I want to go back to leaning on this point to our discussion about athletes taking up the colors of other nations. There are those who have opted, of course, to remain. Faith Kipyegon, the smiling destroyer, still wears the country's colors. If I could ask you just to summarize this point by telling me, from the point of view of the athletes, what really would you say is the single most important thing for them in deciding to remain?
I suppose you could say it's financial, but it's also when the financial disparity between staying and going is so wide that it's almost like insanity to stay, right? So someone like Favour Fili and the Jamaicans, about 3 Jamaican Olympic medalists who are switching to Turkey as well. The rumor is that they're going to be paid a $500,000 bonus. They're also going to be paid monthly stipends in the tens of thousands up until the 2028 Olympics. So when you hear that as an athlete, right, they're not footballers, right? So $500,000 is life-changing, at least for 5 to 10 years.
Oh, yes.
Right? So when you know that you're not even going to get half of that from Nigeria, not even close to half of that, you know, maybe in Nigeria's history, the only athlete that might have even earned that much in their career is actually Tobi Amusan, and that's just because she ran a world record.
Yeah.
So the question then becomes, how does Nigeria respond, right? Both the government and corporate, as a nation, how do we respond when there's a very real risk that all our best athletes will eventually go to other countries who are willing to pay what it costs to get the Olympic medals, right? At the moment, it doesn't seem like we're willing, or we don't seem to understand what it would take. For example, I've actually said this recently, that with someone like Ofili, I mean, I've not spoken to her. I don't have any, you know, personal, professional relationship with her, but I know from experience that Nigeria doesn't need to give her $500,000 for her to stay. She just needs to feel, you know, respected, loved, wanted. And she needs to know that financially it's not suicide staying. She needs to, I mean, like I said, if she was able to earn half of that even over the next Olympic cycle, then it starts making a lot more sense for her to stay with Nigeria. And of course, she needs to be sure that what happened at the last 2 Olympics to her isn't going to happen again, right? And if you've been disappointed twice by your nation, I think the first time she didn't get to run at all in Tokyo because Nigeria hadn't done the requisite testing for about 10 of the athletes, so they all got knocked out. And then I think even more harrowing was Paris. She qualified in the 100 and 200, and her name was left out of the 100, and she didn't get to run it. Imagine training for your whole life, but 4 years, the first one happens, 4 years again, you've put your trust back in the nation. You go to Nigeria for the national trials and qualify as the national champion in the 100 meters. I was there in Benin. That race was delayed to almost 11 p.m. under floodlights. And then a couple of months later, you're being told your name wasn't entered and you're not going to run the 100 meters.
Why, by the way?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, there was an inquest. There was I think a couple of people were implicated for not realizing her name was removed or was left out. But why was it left out in the first place? I guess we may never know. But the point is, it's actually, I mean, hers is an extreme example, right, of an athlete that must feel they have good cause to not let a $500,000 offer slip by. You know, she must feel that she has good cause. Have we done enough as a nation to convince her that her next Olympics wouldn't be, like something disaster will not happen again? I don't think we were able to do that as a nation, Right. So, when you look at that, it's now opening up the doors for other athletes. What's interesting is that what athletics has actually made it quite difficult for athletes to switch. You now have to wait 3 years from when you represent your country. So now, and that's why Favour Fili's news is coming out now, because it's 3 years to the LA Olympics. So she and the Jamaicans have said, okay, they want to take this deal from Turkey so they can be in the Olympics. And they're willing to sit out the World Championships this year, the Commonwealth Games next year, the World Championship 2027, they're willing to sit all that out. And it's kind of ironic because that rule was in part put in place because of Nigeria, because a decade ago, Bahrain was recruiting their whole junior team from Nigerians who were leaving to go to Bahrain. Qatar was recruiting Nigerians. So World Athletics, to make it less easy, to make it more difficult to do that, they said, okay, you've got to wait 3 years before you can compete for the next country. And now, unfortunately, it would appear that things are so bad for our athletes that they're even willing, okay, we'll wait 3 years.
It's
because
still too great an incentive to
we'll wait 3 years.
up.
So hopefully, Making of Champs, we're still doing what we can to support athletes, to get them better support. I mean, I have to really hats off to MTN for their support of our academy, because sponsoring 20 athletes a year is something that, I mean, no one else in Nigeria is thinking about. But MTN is standing in that gap. They can't do everything. Other brands need, like, when you look at USA, UK, when you look at their funding programs for athletes, they are funding at least 100 athletes year in, year out for 4 years to go for the Olympics. Sure. So if I'm saying that MTN is doing 20 and we have another partner, Beacon Power Services, doing 2 athletes, and that's all anyone in Nigeria is doing to support athletes, it's not good enough as a nation.
Scandalous.
Yeah. Nigeria can train Olympic medalists for $20,000 a year per athlete. Like, it's nothing, It's nothing when you think about it. When you think about how much the footballers are getting for winning, like, just, and this is, I guess, to the government, just invest some of that cash into Olympic medals. Every year, every Olympic cycle, I come out with an opinion piece that says, oh, Nigeria can win 5 medals at the Olympics, and this is how you do it. And even this cycle, behind closed doors, I have definitely sent blueprints, proposals for this is how to win 10 medals in 2028. Now, do I think it's going to happen based on where we're going at the moment, based on the fact that Nigeria even missed the World Relays altogether in China in May, based on the fact that we cannot keep our best athletes, and Favour Fili may not be the only one that decides to step away from Nigeria to compete for another country in 2028. All those things are telling me at the moment we're not on track to win any medals in 2028. I mean, and why would you expect a different result if you've not done anything different?
Absolutely.
Since I started Making of Champions, because Nigeria didn't win a medal at the Olympics.
In 2012.
2012. Now we've had 3 Olympics since then, 2016, 2021, 2024. We've only won 1 medal in athletics since then in the long jump. So on the surface, it would appear that nothing has changed. But what has changed is that the pipeline that Making of Champions has helped to build. Because when we have competitions like MTM Champs, all the college coaches in America are watching the videos and are awarding scholarships based on what they see.
Sure.
So there's a lot more. We're in a golden age of talent for Nigerian athletics, and we're squandering it. We're squandering it. And it doesn't have to be that way.
So before I move off the subject completely, it's obvious to me from the things you've said that the existential problem that confronts you, athletics, in this country is funding.
Yep.
That's support for the athletes. You've spoken extensively about MTN and the great work that they're doing with Making of Champions. But what's the challenge you are having in getting other corporates, before we even come to the government, getting other corporates to buy into this vision and see as clearly as you're describing to me today, what the path forward should be.
Yeah. It's so this is an interesting story which I don't think I've told publicly before. Why did MTN do this in the first place? Like, why did they have the belief when no one else did? One of the interesting reasons was actually Toby Emerson. When she broke the world record, like I said, friends were calling me, but also the next day, brands were calling me as well. Put me in touch with Toby, you know, can we speak to her? Can we do something, you know? And by the way, like, I don't manage Toby, it's just because everybody knew like my face and our brands.
Of course.
That's why they're reaching out to us. You know, MTN was one of those brands. We had been talking to them about a competition in Nigeria. And that conversation had been going on for months. And immediately Toby broke the world record. They called back and said, hey, okay, we do your event now. One of the things that gave them the belief was, so do you mean that if we do this, we could produce the next world record holder for Nigeria? Oh, and by the way, can you also put us in touch with Toby? You know, so
yes, of course.
So Toby was the almost like the how do I put it? She ignited.
Yes.
She ignited something in Nigeria. Now, interestingly, she went to Glow. So Glow ended up sponsoring her. So MTN, they were like, oh, well, we don't have anything left, but maybe this Making of Champions thing. So let's just give it a try. You know, and now they've been giving it a try for 3 seasons.
Okay.
You know, and every season we open it up more. We unlock something that, you know, it's actually much bigger than they thought it was at the start. They didn't realize they will have 3 medalists for Nigeria within the first year of training athletes. So it's getting bigger, growing from strength to strength. But what we're hoping now at Making of Champions is, you know, maybe we need to recreate the conditions that that convinced MTN to jump in. And it is, in short, it is preparation meeting opportunity. Because if we weren't there, MTN would have looked around, who can do athletics for us? Oh, nobody. And they would have moved on. You know, so in the same way, we're hoping for maybe, hopefully, another world record from Toby in Tokyo. And you have to wonder, like, even Glow, like, you could be doing what we're doing with MTN. You could be doing that with Toby.
Absolutely.
Right? That's one of the ways she could be making an impact, because, like I've just said now publicly, that if it wasn't for Toby, MTN probably wouldn't be working with us. Right? So she gave them the belief. And other brands working with her, they can use her star power to do a lot of what we're doing if they had the will to do that.
Absolutely. And we talked again quite a lot about NTN's involvement with you, and you've spoken about champs quite a lot.
Yes.
Of course, that's the Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships in Kingston.
Yes.
It obviously made a huge impression on you at the start. It continues to do. Usain Bolt, obviously, was discovered there. I'd like to hear from you, from a personal point of view, what it was like, your first experience observing that, and what key lessons you feel Nigeria really, and you've spoken a lot about it as well, but I'd like it to be as precise as possible. What are the key lessons you feel we ought to draw from that? And how's it transformed, really, or enabled you in Making of Champions to do what you do? Has it influenced your journey so far?
Well, let me start from the end and say that 11 years on from going to Jamaica to see their champs, I was interviewed by a Jamaican journalist in Peru. I went to Peru last year for the World Under-20 Championships. I was interviewed by a Jamaican journalist, and they wrote a 4 or 5 part double-page spread in the Jamaican Observer about MTM champs in Nigeria, how I went there 10 years ago, saw it. I mean, to the extent that Jamaican Observer even published a cartoon about a Nigerian pointing at champs in Jamaica and say, copy this event, you know.
Yeah.
So what struck me when I met Jamaicans in Peru, including the president of the Inter-Secondary School Association that runs champs in Jamaica, what struck me was the honor and the prestige they attach to champs. I was introduced as, oh, this is the guy that started champs in Nigeria. And they're all like, oh, wow, amazing. I spoke to the president of ISA, and he asked me, okay, so how many schools do you have in your champs in Nigeria? And at that point, we had done 2 seasons. And I said, that, yeah, okay, across 2 seasons, we've done about 900 schools, 15,000 athletes. He's like, wow, that they only have 100 schools in Jamaican champs, 150 or something like that. And we've already done 900. So it made me realize that something special is happening in Nigeria. We just don't know it yet. It is actually, MTM Champs is already one of the biggest athletics events in the world. One of the biggest. And it is, and I mean, it's there's so much innovation there. There's in many of our events, we do two locations simultaneously because of the number of athletes. We're doing 2,000-3,000 athletes per event through MTM Champs. Before that, we were doing like 300-500. So it's Champs in Jamaica has had a very pivotal effect on what we have sought to do in Nigeria. It took 10 years from when I saw that in Jamaica in 2013 before getting MTN to start Champs in 2023. Took a whole decade. And one of the very, and this, you know, this is why I like to say this, that nothing we do is rocket science. It has all been done somewhere else. One of the basic tenets of Champs is everybody gets to run in their own age group. So Champs in Jamaica has 4 age groups, under 20 and down. We started with 3, under 20, under 17, under 14. Under 17 and under 14 are for secondary schools, senior and junior secondary. And then in season 2, we added the seniors. So we still ended up with 4 age groups eventually. And it is one of the, I mean, it is already changing the narrative in Nigerian athletics to do with the ages of the athletes and so on. Because when there's a lane for everybody, no matter your age, then the pressure to cheat, because if it's under 18 or under 15 and there's no other option, then you have to say you're under that age. Yes. But now there's something for everybody. And it's really important to understand that even 2 or 3 years physically is a massive difference, right? So if you have somebody who's 20 saying they're 15, right, that they've crossed 2 age groups, you know, from senior down to under 17 instead of, you know. So now with MTM Champs, we have those 4 age groups. And quietly, we've been doing the work of helping to sanitize the whole space in Nigeria. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to paint a very familiar picture now. I certainly grew up, and I think it's our shared experience of seeing and watching elite athletes in Nigeria performing quite well on the local scene, the national championships, and bumming out really on the international scene. You've been all over the world. You've been at international meets. You have engaged with elite athletes and leaders of organizations all over the world. Is there a particular mindset or set of values or principles that enable their athletes not simply to perform well locally, but also to do it when the world is watching?
It still comes back to sowing and reaping. right? If you don't put into the athletes what you want them to show out, they can't. You can't give what you don't have. You know, elsewhere in the world, athletes, they don't want for anything. They're fed. They get to go where they're going. They get the education paid for. If we're not doing this for our athletes, we haven't started in this country.
Yes.
You know, so it's you know, I think one of the ironies of Making of Champions is that it's almost like common sense for this is how, if you wanted to win Olympic medals, this is how you do it. Just do what everyone else is doing that got it right. But for some reason, as a nation, we haven't yet woken up to the fact that it's within our power to just go and get it done. You know, more so than any other sport. And I think this is what gave me confidence to keep going in athletics, is that in football, it doesn't matter how much you invest, right? The chemistry might not be there, or you might just be unlucky. But with athletics, the element of luck is very, very, I mean, it's very minuscule. It's not really there. It's all about finding the best talent. And now we have that. We have that ability to go nationwide every year and look for the best talent, and then putting them in a program that can help them develop that talent the best way possible. And then finally, there needs to be that, should I say, delivery at the end, getting them to the meets that they need to get to around the world to win medals and to earn a living, to earn a good living from the sport. The reason why athletics suffers compared to basketball or football in Nigeria is that it's not a money-spinning sport like those team sports. It never will be the same, right? But can you produce 50 athletes, 100 athletes in Nigeria who are all earning $100,000 a year, right? What is that in Naira? I'm not even sure what that is in Naira, but
a tidy sum.
You know, yes. I mean, if you're okay, I'm doing the maths in my head now. So if you're doing, like, if they're earning 160 million Naira a year, and 100 athletes are doing that, they train and live in Nigeria, they travel all over the world to compete. You've created a whole industry.
Yes, you have.
You know, and then from that group, 1 or 2 will break world records. A few of them will become Olympic champions, and those will go on to earn $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, right? It's not rocket science. It's just that perhaps the money is not big enough, like football, for anyone to, should I say, be as crazy as what I've done over the last 12 years, to just sit down and say, okay, you know what, even if this doesn't make money for 5 years, for 10 years, we need to keep going, because this sport is made for Nigeria. This sport is made for Nigeria even more than football. I'm a big football fan. I mean, I was at the World Cup final in South Africa. I was at the AFCON final in 2013 when Nigeria won. And I did all that before I ever had the idea of going into athletics. But when I had the opportunity to look into this, I knew, I had that conviction from the beginning that this is a sport that Nigeria can own if we want to. And it doesn't take a lot to do it.
Absolutely. So it's not rocket science, but in many respects, it's an exact science based on sowing and reaping, as you've said. Bambo Akani, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.